Get my link. All right. So I'll put that one in the Slack chat now. See if they're the same thing. Nope, they're different URLs. So now you have the second streaming Postgres, which has the infinite stream there going on. Are you able to see that one once you click it? My back in action, good. All right, so we're gonna run things through PyCharm. Just because, so click the little SQL console over here when you have your world database things hooked up. Did you hook up your things through PyCharm? So do you have this? You didn't install PyCharm. So when you go to the Slack chat, I can't stream this because that'll give the password away. But inside the general Hangout, I posted out the license key for PyCharm Professional, and so you need to download it and then paste that in there. And that's because it makes a lot of this sort of stuff, particularly when you start getting into Flask, where you have to do SQL stuff, you have to do Python stuff, you have to import packages and know what they're doing. PyCharm just makes it so much simpler than trying to use the terminal for that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'll start from sort of ground level one here. So the first statement that we're running is select splat from city, limit 10. The select splat means select everything. From city says, well, which table do you want to actually use for it? And selecting all means I'm going to select everything that's in this list right here. So ID, name, country, district, and population. Underneath that, you're going to see these little keys and eyes, which means index. A key is something that must be related to something else. So this very well named IDX underscore 1671, yours is going to actually probably be different because it's just randomly generated because you can't have two keys with the same name. But this is saying that the ID is unique and is primary. So there cannot be two IDs for this table with the same value. It will not allow that. If you try to do that, it's going to throw an error. After that, there's IBFK. FK is generally convention that means foreign key. And that says that the country code must match the country's code. So if I fly open the country, it's saying that this code right here, that must always match, these two things must always like be in sync with each other. This it doesn't show my screen? You can't. Well, it does have like a little streaming buffer. So I think that as I talk live, there's actually some sort of like delay between when you guys actually see it. Wow. I didn't think it would be that long. I figured there would be like a 5 to 10 second buffer delay, but a 21 is pretty intense. Wow. Mhm. All right, so I'm gonna write a command right now. So I want to see when you guys actually see this. No way. Not unless you're what? Yeah. Yeah, so there's about a 10-second, 15-second delay because I completed the select name country code from city. All right. So this command right here, running it, the select name country code from city, limit of 5. What that's going to do is it's saying, okay, I don't want to see everything inside the database or inside this bigger table. I just want to see these two columns in particular from city. And limit 5 means just show me the first 5 results. Don't show me everything. This is generally how you should write your SQL, because even though the splat operator can be nice, it's impossible looking at this to know what splat actually means. Like, what is splat going to return? No idea. The only way to know is to actually go jumping into the code. Just go grab your computer so that way you can actually like write commands. Because ideally you should be following along and writing these SQL statements, right? So that way you can actually see the results for yourself. Gather around, boys and girls. Say again? Yeah, this is in the, or actually this is, yeah, statements.sql. It's mostly those, but I'm going to be writing commands along. So that way, like some of the stuff that I have is different than what you guys have. The statements.sql file is going to remain pristine for now. So basically that's, all right. So I've already seen this before, but you can do select 2 plus 2 is adding, and that's going to add 2 plus 2, and that's going to save it into a column named adding, which is just made up on the fly. If you want to get kind of crazy with it, you can select any random thing by using a comma separated list. The concat is going to take two different strings and just combine them together. So concatenation, or cat as it's called on the terminal, concatenation is just a fancy name for join two strings together. So if I run this, then I get a random column because I did not alias 2 plus 2. Foo is a random column. I didn't alias that. 5 times 5 is a random column, but concat Mr. Bombastic as Mr. Man actually becomes a column called Mr. Man.
So while we're doing that real quick, I was working through some stuff, and what's really confusing is when you're trying to do like a select something and then you count something afterwards. Does that count like referring to the first thing you select, or is it referring to something from the table as a whole?
So I'm actually going to have to check on this one, see how Postgres handles this. But if I do select count ID from city, then it tells me there are 4,000, and it's pretty small, 4,079 total cities that are available.
Run one at a time. By highlighting. Sorry, I just realized what you were doing, and that makes a lot more sense. So yeah, so say you want to select ID from city, but put select ID comma count star. So
Oh, you want to do this.
right,
ID count
count
star.
star.
That
Yeah.
that's not going to work. So here's what's going on. Count is what's known as an aggregate query. That means it takes all the information and combines it into one. ID is trying to select a individual piece of information. So it's basically saying that there's no way it's going to let me get away with that unless I use some sort of group by operation in order to say something like that. So that's actually wrong. Got the wrong ordering there. But it's going to let me do something like that. I don't even know if it's going to let me get away with that. It might. Let's see. There we go.
Okay.
So then each of these different IDs is saying it counted it once, and then when you get the total, you'll
Right.
get the whole, I forgot the end.
So, but the count actually becomes an aggregation of ID. So it like takes on the first statement almost, or does it take on the statement here?
Oop, 4,079. For which piece? What do you,
So it says select ID count star, right?
right?
From city.
Right.
Now that count, it counts everything that's selected and the
Well,
frequency of it.
it selects all the number of rows. So basically, if I was to insert a brand new row right now, it would just simply say, okay, there's 4,300 rows inside of this thing.
So if you
That's what
did
it's
like
selecting.
select count star, it'd be like 4,000.
So if I did like that, for example, that's telling explicitly I want to count just the IDs. Right?
Okay. They just have a couple wonky examples that are just like confusing. It's almost like there's a relationship between the thing that comes before the thing that you count and the what it actually comes out.
Let me go look up the data definition for a city and see if this, no, I don't want that. I want to get the, so one nice thing you can do is that there's this thing called DDL. DDL stands for data definition language. So SQL is broken up into two distinct languages, one of which is called DDL, which is data definition language. The other one, which is called DML, which is data markup language. Whenever you're doing the select all from, that is DML stuff. That is generally pretty standardized. The data definition language, that is completely unique and random almost between the different SQL databases. It varies wildly. That's when you say create schema or create table or create user, those sort of operations, those are DDLs. And you're basically defining like how you want this thing to be done. So I need an ID. I can have a name, but none of this stuff will let me do not null. So what I wanted to find out is, and you could try this on your own if you ever get curious about it, would be that if you did a like create, let's do a little copy pasta here. So if I were to try to do something like this, create table foo, oh, primary key, doing this on the fly. So whether actually, This is kind of silly because I'm trying to teach you guys a little bit about PyCharm. So one nice thing you do in PyCharm is that you can right click, you can go to new, and you can tell it to create a new table. And then you just tell it the table name, foo, just a test table. And then I'm going to give it a plus, a new column here. ID is generally how that's going to go. That's going to be the primary key. Click the plus icon again, and I will call this nullable. This will be a string or varchar of 20, default of none, and that looks pretty good to me. So whenever I refresh this, I know I got 4 tables, one of which is foo. So let's try this. Insert into foo, and I've got an ID, and I will say values 1, 2, 3. Well, you don't want this 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to create 4 values that go on there. Should be that if I open them up, I got 4 null tables. Now the question is, if I say select count pound from foo, that should give me a result of 4, which it does. If I say select count ID from foo, that should also give me a count of 4. The real question then is, if I say nullable here, which doesn't have any values in it, does it still say 4? No, it says 0. So whenever you use a particular value here, like ID or something else, it's counting how many of those exist in the database, how many of them are not null. If I just do the splat operator, that just says, tell me how many rows there are. I don't care whether or not there's anything actually in that row. So do you get the difference now?
Yeah. I mean, kind of, but yeah.
Kind of, or yes?
I mean, yeah. There's other examples that I can't remember on the fly, and it's hard to ask questions when you like only kind of know something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think I get the idea. It's just it's sometimes. Do you guys work through section 2 and 4 of the SQL stuff?
More specific, what were the problems?
Where it was like select, you're trying to select things and then you're trying to count the occurrence of that thing.
I'm just right
And
there
joining
now,
and
but
stuff.
actually I
God,
checked out a
it's-
YouTube on that. It's really good.
Cool.
It's like, what are they
Mostly
talking
makes
about here? And
sense.
the YouTube was like, got it.
Yeah.
I guess it's mostly like the
And
way
they
it
have
affects,
this
like,
really
like
cool
when it's
command
joined and stuff.
called like. So if your typing skills suck, just put like
Uh-huh.
queries, and it's like, okay. In case you mistype 1 or 2 things, if you run like with forward slashes, you're good to go.
Yeah, you will see that on query number 49. So whenever we get into that. But anyway, the thing there to know is that whenever you do the select count, it's an aggregate query. So if you have something that's individual and you want to get that out of there as well, then you need to make sure that you have a group by that says that individual thing, group them into a list, and then count how many of those there are. Postgres will not let you do a aggregate query alongside an atomic query. You can only do one or the other. And then if you're doing the select count, if you're using splat, you're asking how many rows are there in total. I don't care whether or not there's any information in that column or that row rather. Just give me how the total count. If instead inside your count statement you say select ID or select nullable, as I did, so you guys are gonna have a little delay here, but just to run that again, the count goes from 4 to 0 because the nullable fields, whenever I inserted them values, I didn't actually insert anything to nullable. So that says count how many of these rows actually have data in them in this particular column. And if there's no data, then it doesn't count it. So the nullable fields are just null. So you get a 0. So that's the difference between why some you'll see people do the splat, some you'll see them do the ID. That's what they're trying to do. Now, since it's an aggregate query, if you're going to do a join, then you have to join by aggregate. So it doesn't work as an atomic statement. Anywho, blah, blah, blah. Apparently I have this a little out of order, so I'm going to go ahead and put this up. So one of the annoying things about Postgres, at least for me, is that it does not have dynamic variables. You're not allowed, it doesn't really let you create them. So what you do have to do instead is you have to create setting variables, and you create any random setting variable you want, and then you can select that. So whenever you're teaching SQL, it's really nice just to be able to create random variables because then it shows the results that are stored. But in this case, if you want to do one, look at the set var holder.foo equals in single quotes foo. When you run that command, nothing's going to obviously happen. But if you run the next command, uh, .foo, why did that not work? Hold on. There we go. I just had to exit out of the error there. But whenever you select the current settings varholder.var, oh, varholder.var doesn't exist. Should probably annotate that. Hold of test. So the select current settings varholder.var, there is no such thing as varholder.var that has been defined. Inside of MySQL, if you tried something like this, it would usually just say null, but inside of Postgres, it'll throw an error. Here, though, whenever I try to actually select the current settings varholder.foo, which we define with the little set variable above, that actually does work. If you want to concatenate random strings together, then you use the concat operator. Here it's using A, B, and 1, and then just concatenates them all together as strings, A, B, 1. If you want to get particularly fancy, one of the hard parts about this little equal operator is that it only allows you to assign what's known as a scalar value, so a string or something very, very simple. So if you want to select something that's actually much more difficult, then you use the select set config, and that accepts a name, a value, and it is local. And so by being able to do that, whenever I run it, I'm able to make a compound statement and be able to use a function there, which would not be supported with a simple equal sign. If you want to see every single variable that's actually been set, then you show all, and this is all the different system variables that are enabled at this current moment. So you can go through them and look, but don't go messing with them unless you really know what you're doing. Anyway, the way that SQL works, the way you hopefully should expect programming languages at this point to work, which is that they use PEMDAS. So anything in parentheses gets run before multiplication. Multiplication goes before addition. So whenever you run that, you should see the results are 4 times 12 plus 5, right? And that gives you 53 versus 5 plus 12 times 4. So that's not unexpected, but it is something you have to kind of like remember in the back of your mind whenever you're dealing with programming languages.
Does SQL do with by two numbers is it automatically a float?
That's right here. But we will go ahead and run, select 10 divided by 3. So if you want to get a pure result, so I'll run this, you'll see it is going to be integer type.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. I think I might be able to typecast it like this. Let me see if this will work. Nope, it's just going to make it a float. Oh, sorry, I failed at life. There we go. So if you want in Postgres for it to specifically be a floating point number in the result, Postgres uses what's known as typecasting. And the way it does that is through the : operator. So just to, for those of you catching up on the stream, if I do this one, without any sort of special operator there, it's just going to give me 3, which is the result of doing the division, then removing the remainders. If I actually want that remainder, then I have to specifically tell it to do a floating point number, and then I get 3.3.3, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a, I don't know how Postgres handles it. You can see that it rounds up like right at the end. So it has that glorious precision problem with floats where the numbers aren't quite exactly right. But it does have other numeric types. I'd have to go look them up, but there are some that are meant specifically to handle very large floating point numbers. The float is sort of like the worst choice you can make because it's very imprecise, but it does demonstrate the point. If you know for a fact that you want to make sure that there is no modulus, then you use div and then numbers you want to divide by, 10 and 3. And if you use the percent operator, that's known as the modulus operator in programming. And that says, just give me the remainder from running 10 divided by 3. And the modulus is 1, but the actual result of division is going to be 3. So here's set varholder.test equal to some new value. And here's your favorite thing in the world. I'll collapse up my database for right now. This is the like operator. The way the like operator works is that you can either wildcard everything before a certain point, everything after a certain point, or you can use the underscore, which says any random missing variable. So right here, I have select current setting varholder.test, like new, and that's basically saying I have some new value. So this is saying anything before is allowable, anything after is allowable. As long as it meets those two conditions, as long as new is somewhere in the string, it's going to work. Let me do that because there I just selected some random thing there.
You got the percentage around new. I learned that it was just the forward slash around like.
You have to show me what that one looks like.
It was more for just picking out characters. So say you picked up CHAR, we're looking for all the instances of character one, character two, and charcoal. And it would pull up all of those.
Hmm. Well, here what you're going to get with this particular syntax, I'll have to look up to see if there's other variations on like. MySQL only has one variation, which looks like this. But here it actually returns a Boolean, which the way that PyCharm represents a Boolean is just as a check mark. Right? So here where it found it, it says check mark. There is somewhere in this sequence new, which we would expect. Here it's saying from the first position, any random character is going to match, and then OME, and then anything after that will match. If I run that one, that should also give me a check mark because that's going to match the S or anything else in particular. If, however, I try to match something that isn't in there, like select current settings, var test, like unknown, because there's no wildcards there, I just get this empty Boolean value right there. So there's nothing that matches that. I get from select all from city, like, let's try Bolt. Oh, oops, that's not going to work. Select that city name, Bolt. Let's see. If you have two rows with the exact same name, so you might have city.name and country.name, then the way you can get around this, you can either alias a selector, or you could just simply specify like that you want the city.name. You can alias it like city name. That'll keep it from like complaining about the two conflicting ones. We run that. And yeah, so it looked through all the different lists and it couldn't find anything like Bolt in that list. So it's going to keep going through and trying to find it. So what I really want is select city.name where name like Bolt. And it couldn't find any matches. There are no cities named Baltimore in this database. Let me look one up so I can try to get a name that's actually going to be there. Amsterdam, fine. Lovely city. Let's do this. Select all from city where name is like Amsterdam. And there we go. It only gives you one result. This is typically how you're going to see it used, because what you're going to want to do is you're going to know, like, I kind of want something, but I don't know exactly how to spell it. So you're going to say select all from city where whatever it is you're looking up, that's kind of like whatever this thing is. And that's how you do what's known as a wildcard match. So right there is just Amsterdam, but I'm pretty sure if I get it like that, hopefully there's some other things that match in the database. Yeah, Rotterdam and Fort Lauderdale just appeared inside the match. That's in Florida. That's apparently well worth knowing in the list of cities to know. Another selector that sort of works like that is the between selector. So this is going to return a Boolean as well. So you say select 10 between 5 and 9. Obviously 10 is not between 5 and 9. If you select something that is between two numbers, you're going to get a Boolean true. So select 7 between 5 and 9 as has 7. And it says, yeah, there is 7 is between 5 and 9. If you want to select by a limiter, basically, or a greater than operator, oops, that's not what I wanted. Then we have select name population from country, where the population is not null and the population is less than 1,000. The reason why you have to do the is not null, I don't think that Postgres has this problem, but in MySQL, one problem you'll run into is it'll treat null as a 0 sometimes. And so then when you say select less than, you'll get null results in your column back. So by doing the is not null check, that says, okay, don't include null values as 0 inside of this list. So you can see here, for example, there's no one currently living on the Antarctica, or at least as of 2001, and a few of the other ones. And some of these may not actually be true, but this was a 2001 survey. So numbers are a little bit off. There are also mathematical constants like pi. So if you say select pi plus 0.000, you get the result of that rounded out. I just select pi.
How does ham pie is it a float?
Um,
Maybe they assign it as an integer.
it's definitely not an integer because there are remainders left over. So let me try to explicitly make it a float like that. Select pi is a float because the difference between the two numbers didn't change. If it was a non-float type, then yeah, the precision would have gotten higher. There's other mathematical operators like power. So you can select something to the power of however many times, 5 times 5, 10 times. A pretty useful one is the concat underscore ws. W underscore s means with separator. So that's where you are allowed to specify a particular separator for something. What time is it? 7:20. You guys need like a little break at this point. Have you shown him where the bathroom is?
Yeah, it's outside, right?
Yeah, it's right outside to the. Yeah, it's in the bushes, right? I mean, there's a really nice bush right there. You guys have. No, it's yeah. Well, you could have walked around to the front door.
I wonder if I can turn this into a Hackintosh.
You know, you might be able to.
I'll check into that tonight. I don't know what I know what the desktop requirements are, but it's the top of my head, but I don't know.
The irony is, I ran a Hackintosh for like a year and a half, and it was so much more efficient than my Windows machine. So I was running, my hardware
Right.
that I wanted on it, but it was also running the Mac software, and I was like, oh, this is so much better than either of them could do.
Yeah, it really is. I think the holdup on this might be the graphics card.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That door just, I didn't know how to.
Yeah, I've been working through them, and it's like God. And then I'm halfway through the GitHub one.
Yeah.
And then I jumped last week to the HTTP one. And I'm halfway through that, and I was like, where the hell are we? So then I jumped into the first data table ones, and so now I'm on to what's it, number 2. And yeah, it's like I'll get there when I get there. Pretty consistent. Yeah. It's like, really? Have you turned in your resume?
Yeah.
So do mine. They want a job interview, a specific job. It's like, really?
Yeah, so he did that for me. Then I sent it back. He's like, "You're not qualified for this job." I was like,
Yeah. Uh-huh. I think I'll just street sweeper. No, you're not qualified for that either.
"Oh no."
The previous street sweeping experience, I learned pretty quick.
Yeah, so I'm going with the intro to Python, do this, I can do this, stuff on.
In where? In the Python one?
Yeah, and then intro to Python. We also have one of these.
I haven't.
Yeah, the show workshop. Yeah.
The intro to Python, I did that one, and it's really close to the other Python, the second,
Yeah.
the first one that we
I think
did.
this
Yeah.
one's different.
Huh.
Yeah, this is like this one once. Yeah, introduction to Python. Linear algebra, geometry, statistics.
Well, I'm a math and statistics major.
Oh, well then you're good to go. What the hell are you doing here?
Huh?
What the hell are you doing here?
Well, I'm more statistics programmers, but less programming than statisticians.
So that's exactly.
It's only more programming.
That's
so
like the
that's why I
definition
rolled
of a
through to
data
be more programming.
scientist.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's literally written somewhere that that's like the definition of someone that is a data scientist.
I don't know where
It's like, here, let me see if I can find it.
No, that's where I got it from.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know if you've heard this before, but that's exactly the way they said it.
Yeah, that was pretty good, but I'm stuck on it, so I'm trying to use it.
To do what? What are you trying to learn?
I'm stuck on like loops. I'm doing the intro to Python.
Hey, let me send you this video. Are you talking about enumerating loops?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, check this video out. Hold on.
Can you post it on the general thing?
Yeah,
Thanks,
yeah.
man.
We put it in the study.
This is like every stock loop from the guy that wrote his writing and helping develop Python.
Yeah.
He's back. Shh.
See again?
Are they done taking the wheels off your car yet?
This isn't a bad neighborhood, so I don't need to worry about it too much. But actually, one of the guys that we have working here right now, before he became a full-time employee, he was a contractor. So every so often we have to fly him out here, update him on a project. So he came here, he rented a car, and he left the office and he went to wherever he was staying at, and his car got stolen. His rented car. Like,
That's a good kind of car to have stolen.
yeah. Well, you say that, but the problem was that insurance was a complete nightmare to
Oh,
deal
really?
with. Yeah.
I would think that they would just come out and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, your car got stolen. Here's a new car. We'll take care of it." Guess not.
Probably.
Would you believe that corporations don't like just throwing away money?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are they gonna do?
The just have to mute my mic.
You're about to get sweet. Oh my God!
Whoa! Stop. That's the effect where it keeps recursively going. Did there. All right. Grand total. That would be a reasonable estimate, I would say, because we have people who just do like contracting stuff and other randoms that kind of go on there. So let's see. Oh, cool. So back to the Pythoning. So as you can see here, the first separator just using white space. In between the B, the 3, and then the current date, there's white space. So just this blank empty line there. Whenever I do concat with separator and I use a dash, now it's dashes on all those different things. There's a few interesting things about SQL, one of which is that it actually uses inclusive substrings. The other is that indexing starts at 1. So Python and every other language pretty much starts at 0, whereas SQL starts at 1. So you encounter a very common issue known as the off by 1 error. So here, for example, I'm saying I want a substring on Postgres starting at position 2. And so if you know your Python, you would say, well, okay, that's probably should start from stgres. Instead, it starts at position 2 in SQL, which is going to be ostgres. And just to demonstrate that again, if I say select the string position of the @ symbol inside of David at example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's what I get in the result down there. So you can very easily run into off by 1 errors inside of Postgres or any SQL engine because they are indexed starting at 1, which makes more sense, but it's just not how most other programming languages do it, which can be difficult to understand. If you want to combine those two things together, so I want to create a dynamic substring match. So the way that I do that is I use the string position on an element, and then I actually select that substring, and that should get me everything starting from the @ symbol onward. So in this case, I have david at example.com, and I say, give me the string position of the @ symbol. So that says, give me a substring starting at that @ and everything afterwards. So the result of that SQL statement is at example.com. The way you get around this sort of issue, close up my database, give myself a little more screen real estate. I don't need that either. So if I want to get everything after the @ symbol, then it's pretty easy. I simply add +1 to the string position argument, run the exact same query again, and now I just get example.com. So that's a pretty common task where you extract information from an email address. Usually it's before rather than after. So you just get the person's name, but that's how you can do it. The next one is select date 1946 05 12. This gets you the ability to create what are known as date intervals. What am I showing right now? Oh, Jesus Christ. I just sucked so bad. I failed at life. I'm sorry. I would commit seppuku if I was a samurai at this point. Someone would be like, you have embarrassed your family, Ohara. Shame on you. And I would be like, dude, every day, man, I am just disgracing this family. All right, let's see if there's where we go. That's the stuff. So yeah, so just imagine everything I said and just imagine these statements right there, the statements that we've gone over. Concat with separators, substring, string positions. What? Okay, good. Yeah, that is a pretty long delay. So anyone who's here actually watching this on the screen who is here in the class, they're kind of like schizophrenic. There's me saying one thing and showing another. But this is the list of all the queries that I've just run. Fortunately, they're in the SQL repo, so you can get them. Anyway, this is Postgres's conversion system. So right here, I'm saying select date 1946 05 12, and then give it an interval of +5 days. So that tells it that 1946 05 17, that was the party of 1946. I have no idea what happened that date, but presumably it was something amazing because that was after World War II. You'll notice though I have to put this keyword date here, and that's because again, Postgres is a strongly typed SQL language. Most of the other ones aren't. So if I remove this and I try to say, give me that right there, you can see immediately that it says that is not a valid syntax. It must be a date in order to use the interval selector. So without that date right there, it simply will not work.
syntax error near 5. Did I write that wrong?
That one is correct. That one is wrong.
Because
Oh, because you don't have single quotes around yours.
ah,
That's
got
right.
me.
You gotta pay attention to these
Oh
little.
Jesus, what did I just do?
Jesus has no idea what you did.
Thank God. Wait, we're good.
A more. Oops! I just hit the mic. So someone's gonna be a pop. But woke you up, right? So if I want to create an interval between a specific time period, the way to do that is there's a special selector called year month. So here I'm saying select the date of 1946 0212 plus an interval of 5 years and 3 months. And whenever I run that selector, you'll see that it gives me 1951 05 12. So that's the ability to use date times, which whenever you're using databases, this is a pretty common operation to mess around with dates because you want to say select all orders from, well, from when? 3 months ago. And you want some way of being able to specify that sort of interval. And this is how you do it in Postgres. One of the other common issues with dates, though, is you can see that the date format there can be a little bit different than how you're probably used to seeing dates. In order to get around that problem, there is a special selector called toCharacter. And basically, you take a date and then you tell it how do you want to format it. So in this case, I'm saying that I want it to be formatted as the days, dot month, and then dot year. As you can see, it takes 1946 02 12, and it converts that into 12, which is the day, dot 02, which is the month, and then the year of 1946. Yeah, the U.S. imperial system and a lot of other stuff, we are definitely standing alone, and because this causes a huge problem actually when it comes to doing web pages internationalization. So there's an entire ISO 8601, I want to say off the top of my head, and that deals with all the different requirements for internationalization. So there is an international time format. In fact, it looks like it's the formatting. So it must be in a particular format. And that is, let me see if my, I can pull it up right now in JavaScript because it does have that. So console, date, time, so let me get away with that. Nope. No. New date. There we go. It's the format that if you, whenever the buffering catches up, this is the internationalized date format. So x equals new date, x timestamp should work, right? Let me see if it'll let me do this. Go look it up because you don't do this too often, but on occasion you do. JavaScript actually has a whole lot of really nice built-in x.2 ISO string functions just for doing it. Here we go. This one right here, this time string, this is the official standard for how you're supposed to write dates and times. So it's year dash month dash day, and then T, that's saying that here is the time that I want to have, and that's 02 colon 44 dot colon 32, which that's on Greenwich Mean Time. So the universal time right there. And that's the official way to do it. So that way everyone has the same base string. And so however you want to format it, that's up to you. But that gives everyone, like when you're passing around dates, always use this format. Otherwise, you have to convert from one time zone into another time zone. Then you have to watch out for things like leap years, and you have to watch out for daylight savings times and all sorts of other fun stuff. If you ever do internationalization, it's a huge pain. So yeah, definitely not a lot of fun. But anyway, just to show the difference, there's that one. There are a handful of pre-selected definers. So if I say select now, that's saying select whatever current time it is right now. And you can see that on this one, it's actually using my time once it catches up. And the reason why is because this uses the system time of whatever machine is running on. So if you use Postgres and you say select now, and you have the time zone set up as like America, Chicago, or Pacific Standard Time, you're going to get a wildly inaccurate result whenever you translate that into someone else's time zone, unless you've already accounted for the fact that you're in a different time zone. But we ran into a bug on one of the systems I worked on. And the reason why was because it was using America Chicago as the default time. And then it was translating that into UTC time for customers. So it was off by 6 hours every single time. So they were like, why is all of our information like 6 hours, a day off? And where it's like, well, that's why, because we weren't storing it as UTC. I don't think that inside of MySQL has one really nice thing called UTC timestamp, and basically that says, okay, no matter what their system is set to, make sure you're always selecting UTC time, so that way you never run into this problem. And that's basically what my code fix was. I went through the database and said, where it says select now, select UTC time, and then you always have the UTC timestamp. So in addition to saying the DY, which gives you the three-digit shortened day, if you spell out day fully with just the single uppercase, then you get the single uppercase on the name of the week. If you want to see the whole thing, you do this. And if you do Command Shift, but if I make it lowercase for the select to car now day, day. And just to show you, you can do this for any particular date from a date string. So in the year 2020 of December 25th, that'll be a Friday.